America versus Europe, the secret war between friends. They are the central pillar of the modern global order. An alliance forged in the crucible of 2 world wars and a long Cold War. But this indispensable alliance is also a paradox, punctuated by moments of intense anger and bitter dispute. It's a tale of 2 Wests, bound by a common heritage but often separated by fundamentally different answers to the most basic questions of politics, economics, and culture. This report deconstructs this complex and often contradictory relationship over the past 100 years. The disputes are not aberrations, they are an inevitable feature of a relationship between 2 global powers that, despite their shared history, have evolved along distinct paths. The transatlantic story is a cycle of coming together out of pure necessity, only to drift apart the moment the danger subsides. After World War I, a shattered Europe grappled with devastation while the US retreated into isolationism, determined to avoid entanglement in European affairs. While America looked inward, Europe descended into crisis, creating fertile ground for the rise of fascism. It took the shock of Pearl Harbor to drag America into World War II, forging the Grand Alliance with European nations to defeat the Axis powers. This was a partnership born of a common, existential threat. With the war won, the looming threat of the Soviet Union created the Cold War Compact. Western Europe accepted American leadership in exchange for a security guarantee. This was solidified by 2 transformative initiatives, the Marshall Plan, which poured billions into rebuilding Western Europe, and NATO, a military alliance built on the promise that an attack on one is an attack on all. But this new hierarchy was made brutally clear during the 1956 Suez Crisis. When Britain and France invaded Egypt, the US publicly condemned its own allies, forcing them into a humiliating retreat. The crisis marked the definitive end of old European empires as independent global powers and the ascendancy of the United States. When the Soviet Union finally collapsed in 1991, the glue that held the alliance together dissolved. Without a common enemy, underlying differences erupted. The 2003 Iraq War became the Great Divorce. The US-led invasion was fiercely opposed by France and Germany and met with massive public protest across Europe. It was a clash of worldviews, a Marshall America willing to use unilateral force versus a Europe that believed in multilateralism and international law. The war created a deep trust deficit from which the relationship has never fully recovered. This was amplified during the America First era, which openly questioned the value of NATO and imposed tariffs on European allies, causing US favorability to collapse to historic lows. If history created the alliance, money makes it inescapable. The US-EU economic relationship is the largest in the world, with total trade reaching $1.4 trillion in 2023 and two-way investment valued at nearly $5 trillion. But this interdependence is a constant source of friction. For decades, the US has run a large goods trade deficit with the EU, which politicians have used as a political weapon, claiming Europe is taking advantage of America. The battles have evolved over time. The old fights were over agriculture. The EU's Common Agricultural Policy, CAP, was seen by the US as a protectionist system that unfairly restricted American exports. These disputes were rooted in a deeper philosophical clash. The EU operates on the precautionary principle: if something might be risky, it can be banned even without conclusive proof. This thinking underpins its strict rules on GMOs and hormone-treated beef. The US, in contrast, requires scientific evidence of harm before regulating, and views the European approach as disguised protectionism. Today, the battlegrounds have shifted to the 21st century economy, tech and climate, a form of regulatory imperialism where each side tries to export its own model. European efforts to impose a digital services tax on US tech giants were seen in Washington as a direct attack on American firms. In response, the US passed the Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, offering massive green subsidies that were contingent on North American manufacturing. European leaders decried this as discriminatory, fearing it would lure investment away from Europe. These are not just commercial spats, they are a geopolitical contest for who will write the rules of the global economy. The deepest divide isn't about politics or trade. It's about values. The American cultural operating system is built on a fierce belief in the individual, while Europe's is defined by social solidarity and the collective. Polling data makes this chasm clear. When asked what is more important, 58% of Americans choose the freedom to pursue life's goals without state interference. In Germany, 62% choose the guarantee that the state will ensure nobody is in need. This single difference explains the two vastly different models of society. This translates directly to the welfare state. European nations have built large, comprehensive social safety nets, while the US system is much less generous. Americans are also far more religious. 53% of Americans say religion is very important in their lives, compared to a European median of just 22%. This God gap shapes the moral vocabulary on both continents, especially on social issues. Finally, there's work. It's often said that Americans live to work, while Europeans work to live. The US is the only advanced economy that does not federally mandate a single day of paid vacation, while most European nations mandate 25 days or more. As a result, Americans work significantly longer hours and report more stress. So which model produces better outcomes for its citizens? To find out, we can look at two global report cards. First, the Human Development Index, HDI, which measures health, education, and standard of living. Here lies a paradox. The US has one of the highest incomes per person, yet its overall HDI ranking is consistently surpassed by European nations like Switzerland, Denmark, and Germany. The primary reason is health. Despite its wealth, the US lags behind its European peers in life expectancy. World Happiness Report delivers an even more stunning verdict. European nations, particularly the Nordics, consistently dominate the top of the rankings. In 2024, Finland, Denmark, and Iceland held the top spots. The United States, meanwhile, fell to 24th place, its lowest ranking ever. An alarming finding was the dramatic decline in happiness among young Americans, whose life satisfaction now ranks 62nd in the world. The data tells a clear story. The American system is a powerhouse at generating wealth, but European models appear far better at converting that wealth into health, security, and happiness. After a century of companionship and conflict, the transatlantic alliance is moving away from a partnership based on shared values and toward a more openly transactional one. Polling shows Europeans no longer see the US as a reliable ally, but as a powerful, unpredictable, necessary partner. They are being forced to pursue strategic autonomy as an insurance policy against American abandonment. At the same time, the US is pivoting to face China as its primary rival, while Europe remains focused on the immediate threat of Russia. This strategic divergence makes a unified Western strategy increasingly difficult to sustain. And yet, the alliance endures. The economic interdependence is too vast to be severed. And the recent unity in the face of Russia's invasion of Ukraine shows that when faced with a clear and present danger, the West can still rally. The dispute between Europeans and Americans isn't a sign that the relationship is failing, but that it is maturing into a more complex phase. Managing this inherent, inevitable dispute, while preserving the cooperation needed to confront global challenges, will be the defining task of our time. The alliance survives, not out of sentiment, but out of necessity. But understanding and covering such complex topics requires a lot of researching and understanding. If you want to be tuned up for these events and analysis between world powers, hit the subscribe button and stay curious, for next video will ring more alarming bells. Thank you.